Welcome! In today's video I will show you how you can quickly and easily create these two bike tires that you see on the screen right now. For that I will be using my latest tool, Viktor's Tirefier, which is a procedural tire generator based on Blender's geometry nodes. And while creating the tires I will give you a detailed overview of all the settings and also show you how you can utilize these to create such a result. Alright, I have prepared a small scene. I have like a bike rim, also with the measurements that we can use later on for the tire. I have a simple tread segment that I'm using with an array modifier and a bevel to create the full tread. And I also prepared some cool looking shapes for the sidewall, as well as like some brand name that might sound cool. And then all of these we're gonna use now with the Tirefier. To append the Tirefier to your scene, go to File, Append, select the blend file that you have downloaded, go to Node Tree and then select Viktor's Tirefier. You will see that you have now 4 additional meshes imported. There are 2 tiny vent sprews that will be used in the modifier, the Alpine sign which will be used for the winter option if it's being turned on, as well as a curve that is then defining the basic shape of the tire. Let's create a plane in the origin, assign geometry nodes and select Viktor's Tirefier. And you will already see it took this curve, it's already here in the tire shape, and it's like generating a circle out of it. And whatever you now do with the tire shape, it is being also applied directly to the tire itself. Let's go through the settings one by one. First we have the tire section. This is your basic shape. You have the tire shape where you select the curve to define the shape. The tire shape smoothness basically smooths out these curves. So if I would make something crazy like this and then increase the smoothness to 1, it would smooth it out. If I would leave it at 0, you get the direct result that you have here. And having something like 0.25 smooths out the irregularities that might come in from moving all of this stuff by hand. Then we have the tire tread. You can first turn it on and then select the mesh you want to use, and it wraps around the mesh. It wraps the mesh around your tire. You can also assign a material. Once you have something proper, we can assign it here. Since geometry nodes ignores whatever material you define here, it needs to be set here. The tread fade out basically shrink wraps the borders of your tread to the tire shape. So if we turn it on and turn it off, you would see that now our tread just goes on top of it, nothing happens. You use the fade out and you get like this smooth transition. The fade amount is basically the distance from your border to the middle, so the higher you go, the closer you arrive to the middle, and the smoother it fades out. The tread wrap is something you need for the bottom to close off the loop. Since geometry nodes only takes the furthest points out, so this is the beginning and this is the end, it doesn't care about all of this. If you would have a straight tread segment, it would close perfectly. But since we now have like this V shape, you can use the tread wrap to basically close off the setup. So let's see something like this. The tread with scale defines basically, if you set it to 1, the tread is being wrapped through the whole basic shape. And the lower you go, the farther you go to the inside. And for example, cars would have something like this, that the tread fades out on the sidewall. Some off-road cars would have it more like that you also have this transition to the sidewall. For now, let's keep it somewhere here. The resolution is basically the subdivisions of your basic shape. I like to use 2 because it's a bit more smooth. But then again, if you have like poly count limitations, stay at 1. And then the next ones are the units, the diameter in inches. So basically my rim is 19 inches, so if I would type in now 19, I'm closing out perfectly with the rim. The width in millimeters is basically the width. Right now the rim is at 80, so we can set the tire, for example, to 90. And you can see that it's basically closing off perfectly with my rim. And the height is in percentage of the width. So right now we have 25% of 90. Let's go for 50% of 90. And the tread depth is basically the distance from the highest point of your tread to the lowest point. So if you would like type in 10 or 50, you can see how it goes farther inside. It goes farther inside because our height is kept to the 50% of 90. So whatever you set here, you will not modify the highest point of the shape. Same also applies to the width and the diameter. Whatever you do, these three always win against any other settings, and everything else kinda is being rescaled according to those. That's about the tire settings. Now let's configure basic shape. The look I'm going for is something like this, that I have like a small sidewall, pretty straight with these sharp angles, and then it kind of flattens out a bit like on these cool looking motorcycles. And you can see in the front it's a bit more round, while in the back it gets flatter. So let's start with the front shape. Basically you can get yourself a second window, select your shape, and whatever you now do here will automatically be applied here. And now turn on our tread back. Maybe let's also turn off the measurements. And now we can continue with the next one, the seam. The seam, you can turn it on and off, but also without it having as a mesh, you can see those sharp edges. Those are the seams, and they basically define your sidewall, and they go by the edge count. So right now this is my edge 0, this is 1, 2, 3, and you can see 1 and 3. If I go up to 4, it goes up to 4. If I go down to 0, it starts at the bottom. So let's set ours to something like this, where the sidewall begins, and this one somewhere here. This already looks promising. And the seam only outside. For example, you have a car, you will never see the backside of the tire. You can turn this on and then you'll save yourself some polygons on this side. And the radius, the basic radius of it. Let's continue next with the text. You can again turn it on or off. If you have textures, you don't need the meshes. You can again, like with the seam, only use it on one side. And you can also give it a bevel to make the shading look better. There's the scale. Maybe let's go like this, which is the overall scale. And there's the resolution, because the smaller the scale is, you will need to recalculate the resolution because it's being merged by the distance, by the smaller distance. So if you lower the scale, you need also to increase the resolution. Here, comparison, because it kind of gets all jaggy. And then you can like crank it up, or also if you have like low poly needs, maybe you want to have it a bit lower, just to get like the idea there. The tile text Shift Y is the movement from top to bottom on the sidewall. the Shift X, you're moving it along the sidewall. And let's just move it a little bit up so it's not interfering with the seam. The tire text extrude is basically how far out your text is pointing, and it's in millimeters. Then the load and speed rating, like all of these values here, they are like manufacturer information that you can look up. I, for example, found one for motorcycle tires, like this table. So for example, we can say we have our speed of 200 kilometers per hour, that's a U. And then also let's say we have a maximum load of 290 kilograms. So it would be 65U. And you can just type in 65U. And whatever you do with the text, it automatically updates on the sidewall. Also, as you may have seen before, the units of the tire also directly are recalculated on the sidewall. Then the treadwear, the friction temperature, max load in kilograms, we just saw it. It was 290. The pressure in kilopascal, all of these are North American or Australian codes. They are like special cases, according to my research, that they are only shown in these countries. So if you turn on the North American and Australian codes only, you will get this information with the max load in kilogram and kilopascal. And this is where treadwear and traction is. This is something maybe you can look up for your specific needs. If you want to change it, that's how you do it. You can also switch from radial to diagonal. You can turn on the winter tire option. And the dot number is basically your serial number of the tire. Whatever you type in here will be also shown here. That's about the text. Maybe we can even scale it up a bit since we have so much space. And then also shift it up a bit. Oops. To a bit more central. The next one is the custom sidewall. You need to enable each of them. And then we can just, with the eyedrop tool, select the objects I have prepared. And you can already see here now that they are appearing. Let's go to wireframe to see it better. And just like with the text, you have the Shift X and the Shift Y. X goes along the sidewall and Y goes up and down. So let's position this properly into the middle, like that. And then the second one, the logo, I want to have like under my main text. So let's shift it in X and move it up a bit, like that. And since I have two meshes, the other one is now like on the opposite side. This is where I want to have that Manta Air typo. So let's also use again Shift X and move it all the way here and make it align properly, like that. And we can also move it a bit up so it doesn't intersect. Like this. Maybe we need to scale this one a bit since it's interfering with the text. You can simply go into the edit mode of these. I, for example, use the bottom vertex as my pivot point in this case. And then we can use the Y or X axis to scale it. So let's go and look at the tire itself. and then use the y-axis to scale it properly. And then we can also move it in the x-axis, up or down to fit more better. Yeah, and the scaling fits. Let's check the other side as well. This one now got moved away, so we can just take it and move it back into place. Like that. Alright, the rest fits. And we can move on to the next one. We have the Treadwear Indicator. You can also turn it on or off. It has the minimum legal height that I found out of 1.6 millimeters. And you can give it a bevel to have some nicer shading again. And you can also scale it and move it. So basically just move it somewhere where it's not interfering with your tread, and also scale it in such a way that it doesn't stick out. And I think I like to keep the bevel on to have some nice shading. Yeah, that's a nice detail. The bead ribs are being generated from the first edge until to the first seam. You can again also only use them on one side, and the bevel gives them again also some nice shading. And the last one is the vent Sprews. You can also turn them on, again use them only on one side, and the ones on the sidewall use the longer variant, while the ones more up are the shorter ones. You can change the randomness with the seat, and you can increase the amount that you want to have. For example, like this. Yeah, that's about all the settings. Now let's, for example, rename this one to tire front and move it into our collection and parent it to our whole control of the rim. And what you can do now, just by modifying some parameters, you can easily adjust it for the back rim or for the rear rim. So let's call this tire rear and move it into here. And I have also prepared a rear rim. And now we can simply modify our units to scale it accordingly to our new rim. So the rear rim is a bit smaller, it's only 16 inches, so we can go in here and say I want to have 16 inches, but at the same time it's wider, it's more of 175 millimeters, and the height, as you have seen in the reference, they are a bit flatter than the front wheels, so let's go like for 30%. And now we're almost there. What we can do now is duplicate our shape, call it shape rear, and select it for this one. And then now we can easily, our wrap is still correct. What we just have to do is adjust our scaling of the tread. And I would say also a bit of the smoothness. So let's increase the fade amount to make it a bit smoother. Something like this. And we can try to make the sidewall smaller. Yeah, I think now we're closer to the reference. And that's basically it. We can now select our, reduce the amount of the vent sprues. This is a bit too much. Let's see what the seat says. That's a better seat. And we can also adjust our meshes, since I have prepared extra ones, like shorter ones for the rear wheel. We can just replace them here. Let's close this. And replace this one with the rear version, and also this one with the rear version. They're just a bit shorter since we have less diameter. And now we can either adjust our seams or the scaling in general. Let's see if the seam, yeah, like this. Let's take the other one. And okay, this one doesn't want to. So we have to shift it properly like that. And just like we did with the logo, let's first put it back and then move it to the main text elements. And then adjust it like this. Maybe we can move the text a bit more. Like this. And then we can also scale it again properly. And then let's check here that our Manta Air text fits onto the other one like that. I just need to adjust this one. I guess it might be that's the one. Just scale it a little bit and move it. Like that. Now we can, for example, have a problem that the vent sprues are interfering with the text. Also down here that one text is interfering with the other text. Later on what we can do is just apply the modifier and then rotate these elements individually in edit mode into a specific place. Yeah, I think the basic shape. Maybe let's see what we can do about this shading problem here. Okay, it's because our tread is not properly aligned. And then we can smooth it out more. Our Treadwear Indicator is interfering. Simply go down and scale it. Yeah, and like that we have just created a second version of our tire with very low effort. Thanks to all of these parametrical settings, you can easily iterate between different setups, different sizes, also reusing your tread, and then generate different tires with different needs. You get the idea. Let's also just quickly take a look how you can fix interceptions like these. What I usually do is just duplicate the mesh, call it like a backup. Okay. Hide it, take the other one, same as parent it with the rim, and then we can apply the modifier. And the good thing is that the center is perfect. You can just take elements like these and use either the world cursor or your origin of the object. So let's set here the 3D cursor, and then you can rotate them perfectly away in one axis. So wherever there is like a wind sprue, for example, interfering, just get it properly, and then we can just rotate it into a more suitable position so it doesn't interfere with our object. One last thing I also want to talk about is the shading. If you go like all the way down to the manage drop down and then the named attributes, you can see here that basically all the UVs are being generated automatically. You have like a global UV map for everything together, and also each individual channel that you're adding, each individual element that you're adding on top of your tire gets also their own UV channel to make shading easier, for also masking and stuff. So we can, for example, go in here into the material and then assign a UV checker, and you can see here that it's generating a nicely projected UV coordinates for the whole tire. Let me just blend this in. And you can then access all of these channels, for example, with the UV map node. This one is just the basic tire shape, of course just the seams, and also all the individual sidewalls. So here we have just the first sidewall, second down there, the third one down up there, and also the text and the tread. So this is basically how I'm using this node to create, for example, a shader like this. Let me just find it. That you can say, okay, I want to have my text tread, I want to draw a line on my tire, I want to create like a dirt map with a mask just for the tread on the position where it's like being used the most. And this is how you can like utilize all of these UV channels individually to get a result like this. Thank you for watching. I appreciate the time you took to watch this video. I also appreciate if you're buying the Tirefier. I spent a lot of work on it and I hope you like it. As always, you can provide me feedback. If you find any bugs, I will try to fix them as fast as I can. I will provide this scene that you see now also on as a free download on Gumroad and the Blender Market. So you can also, for example, take a look at the shading, how I'm utilizing all of the UV channels, or just inspect the detail of the tires of the thing that has been generated. Thank you for watching and have a good time.